right, the next session is going to be a deep one. I invite Sami, Khoury on stage, and my dear friend Ray, who is an amazing woman in the space of well-being and leadership coaching. I'm seeing people after yours. Good to see you. Have a seat. All right. So, are you ready to deep dive into your stories? Ray and Sami are wonderful human beings. They've been on their own journey as entrepreneurs. They've been in corporate. They've had their burnouts. They've had different experiences that have shaped them into being advocates for well-being, which is what we need more of in the world, and also to build this anti-fragile muscle, right? How do you live in this world and deal with all the challenges coming our way? You know, you can't sit in a room and isolate and meditate all your life. You've got to get out there as well. So there's a balance of taking that time out, being self-compassionate, being kind to yourself, but then how do you also step into the world and lead better lives? So on that note, we'll start with the lovely Ray to share a little bit about yourself, your powerful story of what has brought you to doing the work that you do. You have a podcast that's called Don't Be a Man About It, which is, by the way, there are only men on that podcast, which says a lot, right? And tell us a little bit about that as well, but start with your story first, and then we'll go to Sami, who'll share his story as well.
Thank you so much for the intro, Anne. My name is Rahaf Kobeissi, and people call me Ray. And Raise Your Mental Health basically came to life 2 years ago, but we have been preparing for it since 11 years now. And it all started when I lost my dad to suicide. And he was my hero. He was the most positive man. Of course, I was a very young kid back then, but I do remember his very humorous soul. So for me to lose my dad to suicide and a mental illness, it gave me two insights. One, which is we do have a problem in the Middle East where the man doesn't feel safe enough, because if my dad back then felt safe to come out and say, I'm not okay, maybe things would have been different. The other side is we as a society, we do not know how to read symptoms or signs or to catch that someone is not feeling okay. So because of those two reasons, I was like, okay, if I don't say anything about it, who will? That's how it started. And of course, I went through my own mental health struggle, clinical depression, anxiety attacks, suicide attempts. So, and back then I did not feel I was brave enough to say to my friends, the one who's always positive, that I'm depressed and I need help. The narrative had to change. So Raise Your Mental Health does that. It raises a lot of awareness on mental health. It helps people to speak up, especially for men because of the narrative around it, which brought Don't Be a Man About It to the life. Just to break the stigma around the man up culture. I'm sick of hearing the man up things or be a man about it. No, don't be a man about it. So that's basically it. I could go on for hours, but that's the brief of the story and how Raise Your Mental Health came to life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Rafa. I'll call you Ray so people know you. You can find you on Instagram and your social handles, but it takes a lot to really shape your story into something that fuels the passion that you have in the work that you do. And,
100%, yeah.
And maybe share a little bit about when did you feel, it must have been a series of incidents, but there was a turning point.
It was my third suicide attempt where I felt like, okay, so the universe or God is really stubborn here. He really wants me to be alive, and I need to find the strength to at least know what that reason is. So because my third attempt basically made me go blind for 3 days, 4 days, something like that. I lost sight and I was like, oops. So I needed help. I worked with a therapist, with a psychiatrist. I went and enrolled myself in a 1-year self-improvement workshop, which basically brings theater into therapy, and it helps you to let go of your baggage, face your fears eye to eye. That was my turning point. And it took me 4 years of intense therapy and healing to actually, you know what, okay. I'm in a much better place now, and now I can tell the reason why everything happened with me.
Well, you are a force to be reckoned with, and you're glowing on stage and doing the great work you do. So bravo for transmuting all that pain into something powerful.
Thank you.
Sami, being an Arab man, you know, I think having you on this stage, I mean, to talk about the stigma in the Middle East, right, is very important. So maybe share a little bit about your journey and what has made you become this well-being advocate as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Ray, for sharing your story. That's very brave of you. And there are a lot of points that you mentioned, which I'm very happy to elaborate on regarding this Arab alpha male culture that has been here for a very long time, and that is the source of our mental suffering. So, I mean, my story really comes from the beginning of my business life and my corporate life. For about 13 years, I worked in the corporate world, agency, nonprofit, startup. I started my own social enterprise, usually in the business development and marketing scene. And I noticed that for 13 years, I was simply suffering. I had a tremendous amount of stress, anxiety, low self-esteem, negativity, anger, envy. It's like no matter where I went, no matter how good my life was, and I've been luckier than most, I always had this gray cloud hovering over my brain. And I thought, okay, something is not right. I mean, why, you know, I'm blessed with my family, my health, my education. Why is it that no matter how things turn out, I'm still not feeling fulfilled? So I've always been a student of personal development, and just the last few years, like right before COVID hit, I started diving into some more advanced fields like philosophy, mindfulness, neuroscience, neuropsychology, how the brain works. And I felt that I was able to really heal myself. And the reason I was able to heal myself because I felt that most of my inner struggles, most of what I had been experiencing in my mind that was harming me were simply illusions. They were exaggerations. They did not have much grounding in reality. And this is something that I thought, wow, you know, this stuff can help anyone, whether mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And now this is what I decided to do as a career, just as a mindset coach and helping coach and train individuals, organizations, teams on developing that mental and emotional resilience. It is already there within us. It already exists. It's just about simply tapping into that on a regular basis.
I completely agree. I think something you mentioned really struck a chord, right? The stories, like the illusions that we create in our mind and the narratives that we hold in our lives. So something might have happened 10, 15 years ago, and we hold on to it with a narrative that is disempowering rather than empowering. And it's not easy to switch, you know, flip that switch. You've got to grieve. You've got to look at it in the face, and if it did upset you, if it did cause you that pain, be able to say, yeah, that really didn't feel good, and I don't agree with what had happened, but I'm going to use this as fuel to do the good work in the world. You know, I think we've all been through burnout, and we've just touched on that. Like for me, when I was in corporate, like I left corporate just in 2019, and it isn't so much about corporate. It was about me not loving myself enough during that time because I always felt the need to overachieve. I was a hyperachiever. So if you do this test called the Saboteur Test, you get to know what are the things that are your blocks. And one of the things that was my block was I just wanted to keep achieving because I did not have self-worth. I did not feel I was ever good enough. I always had to do more until the point where I numbed out. Yeah. I completely stopped feeling. And I remember saying to my very good friend and CEO of the company, I said, I'm dead inside. Something has changed. I don't feel anything. And this is not me. I know I've got this fire in my belly. I'm that sort of person who's very vibrant, and I like to enjoy life. I like to bring people together. I didn't have any of that. And so it's exactly what you touched on, which was, okay, I could hold on to that and take it into my future, or I could look at it and say, Anne, maybe I should shift the way I perceive myself. Maybe I should change that narrative. Maybe I should drop the illusion. And so I love what both of you shared, because, sitting on the stage now, looking back, you can look at all those pain points, and I can see it in your faces. Like, you can look at those pain points and see them as teachers. Absolutely. And that is so powerful. So tell me a little bit about the healing journey, right? The healing journey is a deep one. Where does someone even start? We live in a world that requires us to be present and constantly facing the things that come our way, especially if we're in corporate. We have families. We're busy in this busy lifestyle. Where do we start?
The healing journey doesn't end. It's levels. It's like you're playing a game, but that game is literally just one player, and that's you, but you have lots of people helping you to pass those levels. The hardest one, which is the beginning of the healing, because that means you'll have to drop down all your guards and all your mask that you have been wearing, and you have the acne and you have that. So metaphorically speaking, you have to drop them all down and trust that that person you're going to, that expert and that environment or that space is safe and will hold you to be there as much as you need. And it's okay. You want to cry, you can cry. You want to remember what happened. It's okay, and that pain is good. That level, or that transition from believing that pain is just here to make me suffer and why God me, to, all right, what is it in me, or what is it for me in that journey? So for me, I had to work with so many psychiatrists and therapists to find the right one. And that was my hugest lesson.
Did you go yourself, or did a friend tell you?
At the beginning, I was forced to. And when I was forced to, I kind of created some resistance. At some point, like, I'm fine. I don't need to talk to a stranger about my issues. I can get over it. You know how it goes. But then I did a lot of research, and I went to a therapist that came to me as a referral. And I went there and I was like, listen, lady, I know what's wrong with me, and I know that I have to grieve, and I know that I have to let go of stuff, so do not tell me what to do, just listen to me. And I realized that sometimes all you need is just someone to listen, guide you in a way or another. That journey took me 4 years, five years, from one level to the other. And you know that something is changing when things that used to give you a breakdown or that triggers so anger and bitterness in you, you would just, oh, okay, that's different. That's a different emotion. What is that? The more you heal, the more you would learn more about yourself. And in my case, the better I would be able to support my clients and helping my friends, or being more valuable, if I may say that word. But healing doesn't end. Like, until today, there are so much I am working on. One of them is my mother wound, because it was so deep that it's taking so much time. And until today, it's been 14, 15 years of work. So it doesn't end, it's just that your level of awareness rises, your resilience gets better because you would know which are worthy of your resilience, because sometimes resilience could backfire on you. You become an overachiever, you become someone who has the imposter syndrome. You have to win everything. Sometimes, really, I don't want to win that. I'm okay. I'm really good. I'm
That's
gonna
not my
enjoy
battle.
just laying back and you win. I'm fine. I'm winning anyway. That's healing. That's healing.
Sami, maybe touch a little bit on why this matters to leadership. Why does it matter for us to stop and look at our wounds and face ourselves to lead better lives? And lead better lives, I mean, in all areas, right? We're talking about leading better at home, as a father, as a mother, talking about leading better in your business and in community.
For sure. Well, I mean, when it comes to leading and leading teams and leading organizations or any cause or movement that you're working on, the way that we bring ourselves to this world and the way that we act in this world is an extension of our inner world. The way that we treat ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves, the standards that we put on ourselves, the way that we perceive who we are, if we are not, as leaders or as anyone, if you are not balanced on the inside, you will bring that imbalance to those around you. And then those around you will suffer in one way or another, whether they are overworked, where they are spoken to in a condescending way, whether they are never, you know, they're not shown any appreciation or value for the work that they do. Your own insecurities are being flooded out to everyone else, and this will cause, again, in the context of leadership, this will cause everyone to be demotivated and to lack the initiative to do anything great or to do simply what they're asked to do because, you know, your neurosis is spilling all over the place. So definitely as leaders, it's very important to work on ourselves continuously, because whatever is happening inside of us can affect those around us. And I think many of us would agree that a leader is someone who can inspire others, who can educate others, who can motivate others to act for a worthy cause. But if you have issues, we all have issues, we all have problems. If you have not worked on them or you're not working on them, it can spill over and basically hurt whatever your mission or vision is. That's the high level, I'd say.
Do you think COVID has opened up the conversation about mental health and well-being with Arab men specifically?
Would you like to take this, or shall I take it?
We can both take it, it's fine. I would just add to something you've said, that leaders should lead by example. So it comes up top down. One thing that is now making a lot of difference in companies and in the corporate world, it's compassion. Leaders have to do all the inner work and to do everything, to be aware that there are some areas of improvement, but they also have to embrace their compassion. Once you are compassionate towards yourself, then you will be able to be compassionate towards your team and your family and your friends and see the world in a compassionate eye. It doesn't mean that you're letting go or giving a blind eye about the things that needs to be improved or to be able to make healthy decisions for the company or anything. But compassion makes you to take a step back and not act based on your anger and bitterness, to be triggered easily. We all have issues, but for me, what worked for me is the ability, which I don't think any money in the world would be able to compensate that, which is the ability to take a breath. All right, let's do this, because we've seen the now $1 million news that has been going viral is 1 second could cost everything. I just wanted to add that. Going back to COVID, I was so happy to see that the conversation about mental health has finally been open and is okay, whether it was a company talking or a CEO or a friend or a man, or the amount of men who came to talk about their struggles. we should, I don't know, we shouldn't be laughing, but I was laughing because I was grateful that finally you chose yourself. And if it took the pandemic to make you realize that, amen. So yes, the COVID was a huge trigger on a collective level that anxiety is not my fault, but I can choose to manage it, to learn what to do with it. My insecurities, my lack of self-esteem maybe, or my wish to always be productive. This need to always be productive, men realize that this is not life. Most of my clients are between 40 years old or 50, 55, and they come to me and say, Ray, teach us how to have fun. And I feel like I just want to hug them and just cry. Like, are you serious? But that tells us that these men were conditioned and were programmed that you are here to provide. You are here to be a good family man. You are here to be a father. You are here to be a husband. Well, how about we teach our boys to be able to be human beings? Why does my brother have to take care of his sister while his sister is already able to take care of herself? Why don't we both take care of one another? You come to me, I have two shoulders for you to cry on, and vice versa. This narrative, when we are raising our boys, will lead to amazing leaders and amazing fathers. A father who is okay with him to say to his kids, Daddy is feeling a bit sad now. And this is how Daddy is dealing with his fear. It will teach their kids that, okay, there will be no gender conversations anymore. I don't want us to keep talking about women empowerment or men's mental health. We are humans. But this narrative has been carried from generation to generation that it sounded normal. Now, if men can cry, you would say, no, he can't. Yes, he can. Enough with all of that. So I think the COVID has been a huge milestone on healing, because that will help us to break that pattern and to break that generational traumas. That will definitely help our, we are now still healing ourselves, but that means that our kids and their kids and all the generations to come will hopefully live a healthy life.
Thank you. That was amazing. Sami, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the points that I think was very important that we have to acknowledge, especially as Arab men living in an Arab culture, is that there is a lot of conditioning on what is expected of the Arab male, which is essentially, to put it simply, the Arab alpha male, that this is who you have to be. And I mean, I've grown up here, I've been in the Arab Gulf for 35 years, and I've seen this pattern and this behavior over and over again, where obviously not all Arab men, but many Arab men, they have this, you know, I have to be entitled, I have to win all the time, I have to always be right, I have to be popular, and no matter where I go, the red carpet must be flung before my feet. This is the attitude, and this has been taught, like Ray said, over generations by fellow, obviously, Arab men, where it's like, no, you have to man up, this is what it means to be a man, and it becomes a type of programming. And to go back to COVID's effect on mental health, I think it woke us, a lot of us have woken up to be like, okay, am I really living in a way that is healthy? Am I really living in a way that is beneficial for me? Am I living in a way that is good for my soul? And I hope that Arab men have realized that, you know, stop putting on this facade. It's not really, you are suffering and you are causing those around you to suffer. And some compassion that I would have is that they either don't know how to have that, you know, to be more open and to be more relaxed, or they are even, again, too shy to let go. 100%. Yeah, and what the way forward is, you know, there's a quote, it's easier to raise strong children than to fix broken men. So now we have that awareness, we have that knowledge. Now it's time to bridge the gap and to start educating young boys and girls on what it means to be a healthy man, what it means to be a healthy woman. And if I can add something also that I think it's also very important for all of us to be aware of, whether you're a man or a woman, which I believe is the source of a tremendous amount of inner suffering and inner struggle, is that we don't know how to be our authentic selves. We don't know how to be our true selves. We have created an idealized version of ourselves based on what we've been taught from when we were young, and then we say, this is who I have to be. Again, whether you're a man or a woman. And so what happens is that there's this gap that's created, a gap between your true self, your authentic self, and this idealized version of yourself. And the larger that gap is, the more suffering there is within you, because you're trying to be something outside of yourself. So again, there are many practicalities of life where we have to, put on a mask and all that. But as much as you can make that gap smaller, I believe your inner struggles and suffering will lessen. Because simply put, well, if I'm being myself and I'm living according to my values and beliefs, what do I have to worry about?
Absolutely. There's so much energy to use when we're trying to be someone we're not. And I think we forget that. I think people think that they need to paint a certain picture, and this is the way that they show up in the world, so that they, get this sense of self-worth, and that's not the case, right? So what does it mean to be authentic? You talked about values and belief, and I love this. In fact, I'll give everyone a practical action takeaway today. Go to viacharacter.org and do the value survey. It tells you through that survey, through that test, what your core values are. And I think it's beautiful when we actually say, okay, you know what? I'm the sort of person who's deeply curious. I'm a curious person. I'm extremely honest. I value honesty in my life, and I will not steer away from that. I have a sense of appreciation for excellence and creativity. And so these are my core fundamental values. So when I live in the world, I know how to gravitate towards people who also, show those kind of values, and the ones that complement me as well. I love the concept of values, and I think it's important that we know what we hold true to ourselves, because at home, when we're creating a home, when we're building an environment at work, it's all the same thing. Whether it's at home, whether it's an organization, whether it's a community, whether it's an ecosystem, whether you're running for governor, if you show up with your values, that's part of your authenticity. But what else would you say is part of discovering your authentic self?
There's one exercise, and it is a practice that I do for myself and for my clients, which helps us to be more authentic. If you cannot say it, or if you do not dare to say it or do it with a friend or a 6-year-old kid, then don't do it to yourself. And that helps with self-sabotage. That helps with negative self-talk. That helps with doing things just to please other people. Would you go to a friend, a very dear friend, and tell them, just man up, and do it for the sake of pleasing your mom or your dad or your boss? Or I don't think we ever do that. We always go to our friends and give them the most compassionate advice. Don't do things that hurt your heart. If you're not happy, don't do it. Find ways to make you, move forward. But we don't do that to ourselves. We are the most sabotaged people towards ourselves. So to be authentic, start from there. Ask yourself, okay, wait, if a friend came to me asking for that advice, what would I say? And how would I act? This will help you with burnout, negative self-talk, self-sabotage, knowing what your goals are. Are these my goals or someone else's goals? Are these my fears or someone else's fears? Because most of my life was spent being scared of things that are not mine. Oh, wait a second, those are not my fears. Those were my parents or my friends or my bosses. Why am I carrying that weight? So I feel this is the best way to start.
Sami.
Yeah, I mean, I will only talk about what helped me in my own experience. And I don't know how it came to me, but I just asked myself, what was I like when I was a child? You know, when we were children, we were free, we had less worries, we were, you know, happy with ourselves. Even when we were by ourselves, we were just happy for no reason. So I kind of had to do some inner work and just think about, okay, you know, what was it that stimulated me when I was younger? Was it, okay, I want to go hang out with my friends, I want to play sports, I want to do art, I want to talk about weird stuff. And I thought, you know what, that just made me happy. And even also in moments where I wasn't really depending on other people or other things for my peace as a child, I'd just sit around and be like, wow, you know, I'm alive. Or wow, like, look at this world.
Where's the light coming from?
Where's the light coming? Yeah, exactly. Just asking questions like, where's the light coming from? Why is this world the way it is? So that kind of made me think, okay, like I think I understand my natural inclinations better. I'm understanding what my instincts are and my impulses. You know, I think that can help you understand your values, what makes you more authentic, and really try to, whatever it takes, you know, if you need to write it out on a piece of paper, if you need to, you know, just talk to yourself about it or talk to your partner about it, clarify what your values are, clarify what you believe in, and what has given you that inner balance. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you know, sometimes you say, oh, I believe in this and I believe in that and this is what I have to work towards, but then that also creates that ambition and that unlimited desire to achieve, which also contributes to your inner struggles and inner turmoil. So that's also something you have to be aware of, that, okay, what am I doing that where I am true to myself and I'm still maintaining my inner peace?
That's beautiful. We'll wrap up this session, but I want to touch on something Rafa said and something you said. You talked about how if you would do it to someone else, if you give compassion to other people, it's always easy to give, I think, right? It's so much easier to help. Like, we want to feel needed in the world, but when it comes to ourselves, it's difficult. So I like that practical takeaway is ask yourself that question. What you do unto others, would you do unto yourself, right? And I think that's beautiful. There was another takeaway, which was take a deep breath. When you're feeling anxiety, just take a deep breath. It takes a second. And scientifically, it actually slows down the brain waves in like the frequency, how quickly it's moving from beta into alpha. And when you're in alpha mode, you're more creative, you're more relaxed, you're more receptive, you're more intuitive. And Sami, like, your recap, you know, ask yourself what made you happy when you were a kid. Like, go back to those places of joy. Try and integrate that into your life. I mean, that's something that's helped me. I'm a performing...
Just to comment on what used to bring me excitement as a child, even now as an adult, after I reconnected with my inner child, I did my forgiveness and all of that, every time I need to celebrate something, it doesn't have to be huge. So my friend, she would be, let's go for drinks. I was like, let's go for ice cream.
Yeah. Micro moments. I call them micro moments. I love it. Yes. Yes, it does not need to be big. The celebration can be small. Yeah. I love that, because that's another really good takeaway, and it's something I learned as well that helped me a lot during these very challenging times. I'm a performing artist. I dance, Latin ballroom, and I haven't been able to compete ever since COVID, and it's broken my heart, to be honest. But I created micro moments. So I would just, you know, cooking, I just dance. Like, I'll be there doing 15 minutes of spins, and I feel great, and that's it. Get back to the, you know, what I need to do, then get back to my computer, get that email out. But I would create these micro moments. I didn't need to go to a studio, book an appointment, find a dance partner, create a routine. I mean, why do we over-exhaust ourselves? We complicate things. If you know what makes you happy, even if it is just sketching a little doodle, sketch a doodle, right? So So beautiful tips for our audience. Thank you so much. I think this was such a powerful, powerful conversation. Having grown up over here as well, I know what it's been like for the men in my life, my friends, my previous partners, and I think it's an important time for people to break the stigma. So thank you for sharing your beautiful story and insights
Thank you.
with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.